In a quiet corner of a bustling city, there lived a young woman named Clara. She worked at a small independent café tucked away on a side street, a place known for its rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the comforting hum of quiet conversations. Clara loved the simplicity of her life, the steady rhythm of early mornings, the smell of pastries, and the smiles of familiar faces. She never imagined that her routine would ever be interrupted, that is, until one rainy afternoon when a stranger walked into the cafe. His name was Ethan. He was tall, with tousled brown hair and eyes that seemed to carry a deep sorrow. When he ordered his coffee, he did so with a soft, almost hesitant tone, as if each word was carefully chosen. Clara couldn't help but notice him. There was something in the way he carried himself, something that spoke of loss and longing. She tried not to stare, but when their eyes met for the briefest of moments, something shifted in her chest. It was a look of recognition, like a spark that lit a fire, though neither of them understood why. Ethan started coming to the cafe every afternoon, sitting by the same window. He'd drink his coffee in silence, staring out at the street as the world moved around him. At first, Clara thought he was just another person seeking solace in the comfort of a familiar place. But over time, she began to wonder if there was more to him than he let on. She found herself looking forward to his visits, each encounter leaving her with a strange, fluttering feeling in her stomach. One evening, when the cafe was quieter than usual, Clara worked late to finish some paperwork. As she glanced up from her desk, she noticed Ethan still sitting by the window, staring out into the rain-soaked street. He seemed so lost in thought, as if the world outside had ceased to exist. Unable to resist, Clara walked over to his table. "Is everything okay?" she asked softly, not wanting to intrude. Ethan looked up, his expression startled, but his gaze softened when he saw her standing there. He hesitated for a moment before speaking. "It's just, sometimes I feel like I'm stuck in a place I can't escape," he said, his voice low. "I think I'm trying to find something, but I don't even know what it is." Clara sat down across from him, her curiosity piqued. She wasn't a stranger to the feeling of searching for something. She had often wondered if there was more to her life than just serving coffee and living in the same small world. But she had never felt the need to voice it out loud. "Maybe we're all searching for something," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "Sometimes it's not about finding it. It's about learning to live with the search." Ethan gave a small smile, his eyes lingering on hers for a moment longer than usual. "You have a way of saying things that make everything seem a little less heavy," he remarked, the edge of his sadness softening. From that moment, things began to change between them. The silent exchanges over coffee became longer conversations. Clara learned that Ethan had lost someone dear to him, a sister he had been close to, whose death had left a void in his heart. He had been traveling ever since, trying to outrun the pain, hoping that one day he would find peace. Clara didn't know what to say, but she listened. She offered him the kind of companionship that he hadn't realized he needed. Over time, they began to confide in each other, sharing pieces of their lives that had remained hidden for so long. With each conversation, Clara felt her heart opening up to Ethan, and she could see the walls around his heart beginning to crumble. One evening, after a particularly moving conversation about loss and healing, Ethan turned to her with a look of quiet intensity. "Clara, I don't know what it is about you, but you've made everything seem clearer. You've helped me see that I don't need to keep running away from my past. Maybe I don't have to figure everything out right now." Clara's heart swelled with emotion. "You don't have to figure it all out," she replied gently. "Life doesn't come with a map. Sometimes it's about trusting that the road will lead you where you need to go." In the days that followed, Clara and Ethan's bond grew deeper. Their connection was undeniable. It was like two souls meeting in a quiet corner of the world, finding solace in one another. But even as their relationship blossomed, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something Ethan was holding back, something he hadn't shared with her. One night, as the city lights twinkled outside the cafe window, Ethan took her hand in his, looking at her with a kind of vulnerability she had never seen before. "I'm scared, Clara," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared that I'm not ready for something like this. I don't want to hurt you. You deserve someone whole, not someone broken." Clara squeezed his hand, her heart aching at his words. "You're not broken, Ethan. You're human. And we're all healing from something. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm just asking for you." For a long moment, Ethan didn't speak. Then, slowly, he leaned in, his lips brushing gently against hers. It wasn't a kiss of passion, but a kiss of understanding, of two people finally realizing that they didn't need to be fixed. They just needed to be seen, to be loved for who they were, flaws and all. From that day on, they walked side by side through life, their love growing in the spaces between words and shared silences. They weren't perfect, but together, they had found something rare and beautiful. A love built not on the need to heal, but on the willingness to accept each other as they were, with all their scars and stories. And in the quiet of that little cafe, surrounded by the warmth of coffee and the sound of laughter, Clara and Ethan found their peace, together. As the months passed, Clara and Ethan's relationship continued to grow, and with it, their understanding of what it meant to truly love and support one another. They faced challenges, as all couples do, but their bond was built on a foundation of honesty and vulnerability. Ethan found solace not just in Clara's presence, but in her ability to see him, to see his flaws and fears, and still accept him with an open heart. Clara, too, began to realize how much she had changed since meeting him. Before Ethan, she had been content with the simplicity of her life. She found comfort in the familiar rhythms of her cafe, in the quiet routine of serving coffee and listening to the stories of others. But with Ethan, her world had expanded. She felt more alive, more willing to dream beyond the walls of her small cafe. She began to see herself as part of a larger story, one where she wasn't just a listener, but an active participant, capable of shaping her own future. One spring evening, after another quiet day in the cafe, Clara and Ethan found themselves sitting on a park bench overlooking the city. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm glow over the skyline. They had just finished a long walk, the kind of walk that didn't require words, where the silence between them felt more comfortable than any conversation. But tonight, something felt different. Clara could sense that Ethan was wrestling with something inside him. "Is everything all right?" she asked gently, her voice breaking the stillness between them. Ethan took a deep breath, his eyes focused on the horizon. "I've been thinking about the future," he said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "About us, and I think I'm ready. Ready to move forward, to stop running from my past." Clara turned toward him, her heart skipping a beat. She had always known that Ethan had been carrying a weight, one that went deeper than his sister's death. It was the weight of regret, of missed chances, of roads not taken. She had seen him struggle with it, but she also saw how far he had come since they met. "Ready to move forward?" Clara asked, a smile playing at the corners of her lips. "What do you mean?" Ethan turned to face her, his eyes intense but filled with a quiet warmth. "I want to build something with you, Clara. Not just this cafe or our little moments together. I want to build a life, a future. I want to stop looking back and start looking forward. With you. Clara's heart swelled with emotion. She had always known this moment was coming, but hearing it from him, hearing his commitment to the future, made it feel real. She reached out, taking his hand in hers, and for a long moment, they sat together in silence, the city's hum in the background, the world seeming to slow around them. "I've been thinking about that too," Clara said softly. "About us. About what it means to take the next step. I think I'm ready too." Ethan's eyes softened, and he squeezed her hand. "You know, I never thought I could get to this point. I always thought I was broken, or that I couldn't love anyone the way they deserved. But with you, Clara, I see that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest and being there for each other no matter what." Clara smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I've always believed that love is more about growth than perfection. It's about learning from each other, facing challenges together, and finding joy in the small moments." As the evening wore on, the air became cooler, but the warmth between them was undeniable. For the first time in a long while, both Clara and Ethan felt a sense of certainty. The future, once a daunting unknown, now felt like something they could face hand in hand. The next few months brought more changes. Ethan began to settle into his new life, no longer haunted by the past, but instead embracing the present with Clara. They started making plans for the future, not just as a couple, but as individuals with shared dreams. Ethan started taking on freelance writing projects again, rekindling his passion for storytelling. Clara, inspired by their journey together, began to think of expanding the cafe, maybe even opening a second one in a different part of the city. Together, they were unstoppable. One evening, as they sat in their favorite spot by the window in the cafe, watching the rain fall outside, Ethan turned to Clara with a thoughtful look in his eyes. "You know," he said, his voice calm but full of meaning, "I used to think that love was just something that happened to you, something you had no control over. But now I see it differently. Love is something you build, something you nurture, and I want to keep building with you." Clara smiled, her heart full. "And I want to keep building with you too." It wasn't always easy. There were still moments of doubt, moments when the weight of their pasts threatened to pull them down. But what kept them going was the understanding that no matter what, they would face it together. They didn't need to have all the answers. They just needed to have each other. And so their love continued to grow, not just in the quiet moments in the cafe, but in the way they built their lives together, piece by piece. In every shared smile, every hand held in the darkest of nights, they found the strength to keep moving forward. And perhaps that was the greatest love of all, the kind that doesn't seek perfection, but finds beauty in the simple, the real, and the shared. As the seasons changed, so did Clara and Ethan's life together. They had built something real, not just a relationship, but a shared future, rooted in the moments they spent building and dreaming together. The cafe, once a quiet refuge, became a symbol of their growth, a place where their love had blossomed, where the community had embraced them, and where they could both be themselves. But life, as always, had its own plans. One day, as Clara was rearranging some bookshelves in the cafe, she received a phone call that would change everything. It was from a literary agent she had spoken to months earlier. The agent had read a manuscript she had written about her life in the cafe, her personal journey with Ethan, and the transformation they had gone through together. To her surprise, the agent was interested in publishing it. "Clara, this is your moment," the agent said, her voice full of excitement. This is the story people need to hear. We can make it happen. Clara sat in silence for a moment, stunned. She had written the manuscript during some late nights after the cafe closed, pouring her heart into the pages. She had never expected anyone to take it seriously, let alone offer to publish it. It was a dream, but also a challenge, one that would take her out of her comfort zone. She hung up the phone, her mind racing. She knew this was an incredible opportunity, but it also meant changes. A book launch, book tours, and media attention. Things she had never imagined. Would it be too much? Would it change the life she had built with Ethan? Ethan noticed her deep in thought when he arrived at the cafe later that afternoon. He sat across from her, sensing something was on her mind. Clara? What's wrong? She looked at him, her heart full of both excitement and anxiety. I got a call today, she began, her voice shaky. The book I wrote, they want to publish it. They think it could be a big deal. Ethan's eyes widened in surprise, but he immediately saw the conflict in her eyes. Clara, that's incredible, he said, a smile forming on his lips. You've worked so hard for this. You deserve it. But, Clara hesitated, her voice faltering. What if it takes me away from here? From us? What if it changes everything we've built? Ethan reached across the table, taking her hand gently. Clara, this is your dream. You've always wanted to do something more with your writing, and now you have the chance. I want you to go for it. I'll support you, no matter what. We've built something strong, and I know we can handle whatever comes next. Clara felt a wave of relief wash over her. His words were exactly what she needed to hear. Ethan's unwavering belief in her gave her the courage to step into the unknown, to embrace this new chapter of her life. I don't want to lose what we have, she whispered, her eyes searching his for reassurance. You won't, Ethan replied with quiet confidence. We're in this together, remember? Love isn't about staying in one place. It's about growing and supporting each other. This is just the next step in our journey. And so, Clara agreed to take the leap. She signed the publishing contract, and soon her book began to gain momentum. The book tour was exciting, but it was also exhausting. There were nights when Clara missed Ethan more than she could bear, and there were moments when she felt overwhelmed by the pressure of being in the spotlight. But throughout it all, Ethan was there for her, cheering her on, sending her encouraging texts, and visiting whenever he could. On one of her rare days off, when the book tour had temporarily slowed, Clara returned home to the cafe, where Ethan had prepared a quiet dinner for the two of them. The familiar warmth of their little cafe was like a haven to her. It reminded her of why she had started this journey in the first place. Not for fame, but for the connection, the love, and the sense of purpose that came with sharing her story. You okay? Ethan asked, his voice filled with gentle concern as she sat down across from him. Clara smiled softly, her heart full. I think I'm finally beginning to understand what it means to balance the dreams we chase and the love we hold close. This journey, it's not just about the book or the success, it's about us. We're still here, together, even when things change. Ethan reached across the table, his hand finding hers. We'll always be here. We'll always make room for each other, no matter how much life shifts around us. In that moment, Clara realized that no matter how far her career might take her, no matter how many changes would come their way, their love, the bond they had built, was the anchor that would always bring her back home. They had created something rare, something real. They had learned to love not just in the easy moments, but through the challenges and the growth. And as long as they had each other, nothing could ever tear them apart. As the days passed, Clara and Ethan continued to build their lives together. They faced the world as a team, supporting each other through the ups and downs. Clara's book became a success, and she began writing another one, this time about their journey. The story of how love can change everything, how it can heal and transform. And in the quiet moments, when the cafe was empty and the world outside felt distant, Clara and Ethan would sit together, hand in hand, knowing that the true heart of their love wasn't in the success they achieved or the dreams they chased. It was in the simple, beautiful truth that they had found each other, and that was enough.